The farmers we will meet on these tours come from all across the land that today we know as Canada. But for thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have been taking care of this land. They knew how to make sure the soil was healthy and the environment was taken care of. We rely on the land to grow food for us to eat. It's important that we take care of the land so it can nourish us. That's why we want to learn from the Indigenous people's wisdom and ways of caring for the planet. We want to work together to create a healthy future for this land and for our communities. This is called reconciliation, and it means we want to make things better between different groups of people.
Hello and welcome back to the Great Canadian Farm Tour. Today is our third stop of the tour and we are on Prince Edward Island where we will be learning about farm research. Before we get to today's tour, we're going to hear from Chloe at Agriculture in the Classroom PEI, and she's going to teach us a little bit about Prince Edward Island.
Today, we will be traveling to Prince Edward Island, commonly referred to as PEI. I will be talking about our capital city, our provincial bird, our provincial flower, and a landmark on PEI. This is PEI's flag. Our capital city is Charlottetown. Here on this map of Canada, PEI is highlighted in green, and Charlottetown is the red mark. Our bird is the blue jay. Blue jays are known for being noisy and aggressive birds. They are omnivores, which means they eat both plants and animals. Our flower is the lady slipper. This flower gets its name from its petals, which are shaped like a slipper. It grows in the cool shade of the forest and blooms in the springtime. A landmark on PEI is the Confederation Bridge. This bridge is 12.9 kilometers long and connects PEI to New Brunswick. It is the longest bridge in the world that extends over ice-covered waters. We hope you enjoy the tour and PEI today.
Wow, how great was that to have Chloe teach us a little bit about Prince Edward Island. Now is the moment that we have all been waiting for. Let's put our hands together for the host of the Great Canadian Farm Tour. She's surprisingly tall in real life. It is Colleen Cronican. Welcome, Colleen.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Laura. I look forward to what you're going to say every day.
Yeah, have a great tour today, guys.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So excited to be on another farm tour with you today. Just a reminder to teachers about our contest. You can take a photo of your students participating in the Great Canadian Farm Tour, of their activity books, or of the screen you're watching on, and post a photo to social media using the hashtag GCFT23contest, or you can email your entries to me as well. Now, I'm very excited to introduce you to our farmer today, Dan. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here, coming to you today from Charlottetown, PEI.
Perfect. Dan, we're so excited to learn from you today. I know students and teachers across Canada are as well. I just wanted to remind our viewers that we get to ask Dan some questions throughout the tour, so you can ask your questions in the comments section on YouTube. And Dan, time to get started. Just wondering if you can explain to us what research farm you work on and what the purpose of a research farm is.
Well, I work at the Harrington Research Farm, so I'm an agri-biologist. The agri is for agriculture, and so it's I work at the Harrington Research Farm in Charlottetown, PEI. We do various types of research to help farmers grow more kinds of crops and to be more environmentally friendly.
Okay, so it sounds like there's lots of science experiments that go on at the farm. And now we're going to watch a video to learn a little bit more about the Harrington Research Farm.
Right now, we're at the Harrington Research Farm. It's part of the Charlottetown Research and Development Center. It was originally called the Experimental Farm. It was developed back in 1909. And at that time, it was developed because there was a need for varieties and research targeted for Atlantic Canada. I'm Dan McCachran. I'm a research biologist here at the Charlottetown Research and Development Center, and I oversee our variety testing and plant breeding program. So the Harrington Farm is 800 acres in size. We have approximately 30 employees out here. There's about 110 employees total here at the center. So about 600 acres is devoted to farming and research. The other 200 acres is woodland.
My name is Judith Nyiraneza, and I'm a soil scientist with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in Charlottetown. And my research is about identifying management practices that enhance soil health. The Living Lab Atlantic has two main issues it's addressing. So the first one is to enhance water quality and enhance soil health. So more specifically, as a soil scientist, we are testing different soil breeding management practices, and those management practices include using the cover cropping, the manure use, and conservation tillage. Those are the main areas we are looking at this moment.
I'm Rick Peters, and I'm a research scientist here with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in Charlottetown. And my specialty is plant pathology, mainly working on vegetable crops like potatoes and carrots and the diseases of those crops.
This is my dream job and dream place to work. It's fantastic. The people here are great. We have 16 different work groups here on the farm, each one specializing in a specific area of research. So we have soil researchers, we have entomologists, we have cropping specialists, agronomy specialists, pathologists, chemists, weed scientists. We're a very diverse research center covering a lot of different research topics.
Across Canada, we have 19 research sites like the one here in Prince Edward Island. This is our only site here on the island. But across the nation, we do have facilities that address the range of agricultural production that we see here in Canada.
All right, lots of scientists that work on the farm, Dan.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. We have a lot going on, as you could see from the video, and they're all great people to have around and to work with.
I bet. Looks like we have a couple questions here from the viewers. The first one is, how many different plants do you research?
Well, for individual plants, there's probably millions. When you think of one of our fields of, say, a field of barley, but for plant types, for different crops, it's a large number, Sophia. We research soybeans, for instance, corn, wheat, barley, winter wheat, winter barley. Those are different than the spring barleys and the spring wheats. Potatoes is another crop. We also research forage crops such as, let's see, alfalfa, clover, some grasses. So we research a lot.
And what do you mean by forage crops, Dan?
Yeah, so forage crops are crops that are intended to feed to animals. So you imagine if you're off foraging for something to eat. So we often, some people would just call them hay crops.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, we're going to jump to our first brain break now, where we'll learn a little bit more about the crops that are grown on the farm.
Did you know crops like potatoes, wheat, barley, soybeans, corn, hops, and more are researched at AAFC Harrington to help farmers be more productive and environmentally friendly?
Okay, so lots of crops are grown on the farm. Dan, can you teach us a little bit more about the work that's being done on the farm?
Definitely. Let's go through the video. So the Harrington Research Farm is much like other farms where we grow different types of crops. But instead of sending these crops to the farmer's market or grocery store like other farms, we use these crops for experiments that will help farmers grow more healthy crops for you and I to eat. The research fields at Harrington are divided into small and large plots of land, as you can see here, so that we can do all sorts of different experiments on each type of crop. Before spring, each of our scientists decides which problem they want to solve for farmers and on which crop. As the crops grow, the scientists and their technicians collect information from the soil, waterways, and plants. From this, they'll write the reports that they can provide to farmers, farm organizations, and the public. Here you'll see one of our plots dedicated to research that is helping to reduce diseases found in cereal grains like wheat and barley. The water you see is being sprayed only enough to keep the plants wet so diseases such as fungi and molds can grow. We can do research all year round with the help of our greenhouse at Harrington. The large lights you see here provide sunny summer conditions to help crops grow, even when it's freezing outside. These wheat plants are looking very healthy indoors and are part of our wheat breeding program to develop varieties for Atlantic Canada. The greenhouse uses automated lighting and are on 16 hours a day to trick the crops into thinking that it's early summer. It has several different climate controlled rooms that can house various crops for experiments. Here's one of our research technicians getting an experiment ready in the greenhouse. This particular technician started here as a student and is now a full-time employee. Now, in another greenhouse room, the automatic watering system is placed into these buckets of soil. The soil comes from the various fields at Harrington, and scientists are testing the soil to see how many weeds are growing in each bucket and whether their field experiments are helping to reduce the weeds. Some of our research at Harrington focuses on helping farmers reduce weeds in their fields with pesticides or with natural products. Like you'll see in a moment, there's one of our scientists who's spraying weeds with organic materials in order to attempt to kill them. These weeds compete with our crops, so it's important for farmers to reduce their number. We also research good and bad insects. We develop new ways to trap and kill bad insects so they don't eat crops. And we sometimes do experiments that help to increase populations of good insects like bees that are very important to farmers and agriculture. In this scene, we can see one of our researchers sweeping a net across a field of canola. In doing this, the researcher can capture insects in the net and estimate how many are in the entire field. This particular project is investigating how to control the pollen beetle, which is a bad insect affecting plants in the brassica family. One of the most common bad insects we research are wireworms. They are the larvae of the click beetle, and they are a big concern to potato farmers on PEI and across Canada. They burrow deep into the soil and feed on the potatoes underground, which makes them difficult to get rid of. Our scientists study various ways to reduce wireworm populations, helping farmers to grow more healthy potatoes. Like weeds, we study natural ways to reduce insects. Here is one of our technicians spraying with an organic liquid substance that was refined by one of our chemists. They hope that this liquid will help reduce pests in an environmentally friendly way. When not in the field, our scientists can often be found in their laboratories, conducting experiments on materials they have taken from the Harrington Research Farm, like soil, insects, plant diseases, weeds, and more. Here's one of our technicians who have taken a plant sample and they're using liquid nitrogen to cool it down to a very cold temperature so that it can be easily ground up using this mortar and pestle prior to analysis. Our scientists, like the one shown here, our technicians, and our farm crew work very hard at the Harrington Research Farm to ensure that Canadian farmers have the knowledge and innovative tools they need to provide food to everyone and to sustainably farm into the future.
Wow, Dan, so much information and so interesting. Our viewers here have lots of questions for you, so let's get started on some of those.
Awesome.
So, what machines do you use to do the research?
Well, coming up a little bit later, I'm going to show you some of the equipment that we use. But just like any farm, we use tractors, we use combines, we use tillage equipment, things that you tow behind the tractors. We also use RTVs to get around the farm. When you have a whole bunch of people on the ground, they have to get to all the fields uh, fairly quickly at times. So it's nice to have these RTVs to drive around in.
Yeah, and it sounds like a pretty big farm, so you'd need that.
Yes.
Okay, our next question. What is your favorite plant to research?
Oh, well, I'm a little bit biased since I run the wheat and barley breeding program out here. But if I wasn't going to choose wheat or barley, I would have to say corn. Corn is becoming a big crop here in Atlantic Canada. It's always been a big crop for our dairy producers, but even more so now for cash cropping. I really like corn because it's very responsive. When you give it a treatment or give it some fertilizer, you're really going to see what happens to that plant. So it's fun to work with.
Interesting. Okay, another question. Judah and Ashi ask, what is an entomologist?
An entomologist, well, they study bugs or insects. So it's very important to have an entomologist as a scientist or a professional at the farm because you can imagine what's one of the big problems we face in agriculture. It's pests and insects. So we need to have entomologists who understand the insects and know how they work in order to come up with solutions.
Yeah, and we've heard those terms bad insects and good insects now in a few tours, so entomologists are kind of experts on the good and bad
Yeah.
insects. All right, we're going to jump into our second brain break now.
Did you know there are 20 AAFC research and development centers across Canada, along with 30 satellite research farms?
Okay, I hope you recorded that answer in your activity book. And here's something else you can write down in your activity book, today's mystery word. So if you go to the last page in your activity book, you'll find your passport, and today's mystery word is safe. So write it down beside PEI's flag on your passport. All right, Dan, we've already learned so much about the farm. We have one more video here to watch, and I'm excited to hear what you have to teach us.
Okay, let's go. So this is a shot of one of our fields at Harrington Farm early in the spring, awaiting to be planted with various research experiments. The red soil here is characteristic of PEI and is that color due to the high iron content, which gives the soil a rusty hue. In the next shot from the same location, we see how the color changes to green as the research crops have been planted and will continue to be taken care of by research staff until they're ready to be harvested. In this scene, it's harvest time, and we can see barley plots being harvested using a very small research version of a combine. The spinning wheel on the front is called the reel, and it helps push the grain into the front of the combine so that it can be cut. The combine then separates the barley grain from the plant and spits the barley out into a small bag on the side for researchers to process. In this shot, we can see members of our farm crew hand harvesting corn plots. They hand pick the corn off the plants and put it into bags for later processing. The long hanging vines are hops, which are an ingredient used in making beer. The hops that look like little acorns are harvested and dried. The hop vines grow up a strong trellis system made out of large poles and support wires. Here you can see the individual hop vines being cut down. Each vine may represent a different variety that will be individually fed into this special machine and which strips the hops off of the vine so that they can be analyzed by our researchers at a later date. Here we see our farm's large combine being used to harvest a field of soybeans. Soybeans are an important crop to Canadian farmers, and we may grow them at the Harrington Farm in fields that may be taking a break from other research activities. Next, we see a potato harvester starting to harvest potato research plots. Research technicians and farm crew all work together to harvest and clean the potatoes of rocks and mud before they're placed into individual potato bags. Here, next, we're going to see the harvested potatoes that fill many, many bags. Each bag will have to be sorted through and graded according to their size and quality so that researchers can learn and draw conclusions for the development of their research reports. These potatoes will be stored in a very special, large, environmentally controlled cooler that regulates the temperature and humidity so that the potatoes don't rot. Okay, now here we're going to slowly walk through one of our equipment sheds. We can see here some equipment such as tractors, seeders, inter-row cultivators, combines, more planters, and so on. Near the end, there's a brilliant seeder. It's used to plant forages, such as alfalfa, clover, and grasses. This particular seeder is of regular size, but we do have a tiny one that can be used to plant small quantities of seed. This equipment is similar to what is used on a regular farm, only a bit smaller. We use smaller equipment because we grow so many plots and crop types on a single farm. Using small equipment and smaller plots allows us to have greater control of all of the things we are putting on the plots. The small equipment allows us to be very precise so that our research findings will be reliable and useful to farmers, researchers, and the public. And as the video ends, we're just looking at some reels, which I showed you before, we spoke about, and that's it.
Okay, so someone asked about the equipment earlier, and we saw lots there. So we wouldn't see some of those smaller pieces of equipment on a typical farm, Dan?
No, you definitely wouldn't. They're very small. They're intended for doing very small work, and they're very expensive because they're pretty rare. We
Yeah.
have to get them shipped in, often from other countries, and so they're very expensive.
Okay, makes sense. Let's get into some questions. I see lots of great ones being asked. So Oliver wants to know, how many plant diseases have you cured?
Oh, well, I don't know how many we've cured, but we have worked very hard to help reduce the severity of many diseases. For instance, in cereal grains, there's one plant disease called Fusarium head blight. And that creates a toxin which is harmful for us to eat. So we've helped develop methods and ways of growing the crop which reduce that pressure or the amount of Fusarium head blight you'd see in that crop. We've also developed methods and ways of farming that reduces disease in carrots. And we work regularly to help reduce the amount of disease in potatoes. So I don't know if we've absolutely cured any diseases, Oliver, because diseases adapt so quickly, but we're doing a good job at keeping up with them.
Yeah, wow, just shows the importance of a research farm.
There's always work to be done.
Yeah. Okay, another question here. How old do you have to be become a scientist?
Ancient. You have to be very old and have a cane. No, actually, you don't have to be very old to become a scientist. Um, Actually, I think that many of the farmers that we work with are scientists because they're always trying out new things and new ideas and trying to improve the health and productivity of their crops. But if you wanted to work at a research center, you'd have to do a degree in science, which is usually about 4 years. Then after that, you could do another 2 years to do a master's degree in science, and then you'd spend another 4 years becoming getting a PhD, so that they would call you doctor. So it takes some time, but it's a labor of love. If you are specializing in a certain specific field of research, the time flies and you have a lot of fun. So go for it.
Right. Yeah, definitely. One more question. How long have you been a researcher with plants?
Well, despite my gray hair, I haven't been a researcher of plants too long, but I suppose I'm going on close to 20 years. So, like I said, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, seems like a great career.
Hmm.
Okay, so we're now going to watch our job spotlight powered by Think Ag. We've already heard today about many different jobs there are in agriculture, and let's learn about another one.
Human resource managers take care of the employees at the workplace by making sure all questions, demands, or concerns from workers are answered. They create a welcoming space for employees to talk about any issues.
Do you have a human resource manager that you can connect with, Dan, if you need to?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and a human resource manager is so important to have. And it seems like almost any question you have at all about your job, you can always go to your human resource manager and they'll help you out.
Perfect. Well, Dan, thank you so much for everything that you've taught us today. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the tour. I know there's still lots of questions, but yeah, just really thank you for your time and everything you taught us today about research farms.
Oh, thank you very much, Colleen. It was a lot of fun and hope to do it again someday.
For sure. We'll see you later. Okay, wow. That was an awesome tour.
That was a really great tour. I learned so much about farm research.
Yeah, I didn't know that there are so many research farms all across Canada.
Yeah, I'm sure the potato farmers that we visited in New Brunswick have benefited from some of the research that was done at this farm.
Definitely.
So for the fourth tour of the Great Canadian Farm Tour, we will be heading to our first prairie province. We will be in Saskatchewan, and we will be learning all about sheep farming.
I cannot wait for this tour, and I've heard from someone that we might be able to get to see this farmer's dogs as well on this farm.
That's exciting.
Yes. Teachers, one last reminder, you can enter our contest for a chance to win a prize pack for your classroom. If you don't use social media, that's totally fine. You can email me your entries as well, and just make sure that you use the hashtag GCFT23 contest to enter.
See you all in Saskatchewan.
Bye.